I should seem completely obvious by now. This is not a dress rehearsal. No, this is Donald Trump, the weak, feckless, incompetent idiot, trying to create a situation in which he can declare martial law. He's coming close. He's purposefully making a quite manageable situation worse by calling in National Guardsmen from California without the consent, in fact, against the wishes of the California governor. For the first time in my lifetime, I believe, he has called in active duty troops to quell violent protest, but there aren't any. But here's the thing. This is a long time coming. It has, I put to you, never been a dress rehearsal. Was January 6th a dress rehearsal? No. January 6th was an insurrection planned, incited, carried out by the guy in the Oval Office now. So I believe what's happening in California is not just a sign of things to come elsewhere, because that's for sure, because we have June 14th to look forward to, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But this has been the plan all along. And to have put this person in a position to carry out this plan should be to this country's undying shame. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. The nerds are here. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Adam, I didn't get you. Hey.
Hi.
It is so good to see everybody. It has been far too long. It is entirely my fault. Waj will tell you, and do not believe him, that it's because I don't like the nerds anymore. No. A vicious slanderous lie. I've been traveling way too much. So I'm finally back at Mary Trump Media Studio, also known as my other room. And it is so good to see you guys. With me, of course, are Wajahat Ali, editor of The Left Hook Substack, co-host of Democracy-ish on Mary Trump Media, with Danielle Moody, and host of the podcast America Unhinged. We also have Brian Karam, White House reporter, best-selling author, host of the podcast Just Ask the Question, which is now celebrating its 7th year. So check that out. And of course, Adam Parkhamenko, former DNC National Field Director, Substack writer at thealtmedia.com. Yes, it is really good to see you guys. Especially
great to see you.
Cool. It's good to be seen. It has been a very long, circuitous
tough room.
A very long 12 hours.
It's been 90 years.
That's what it feels like, seriously. So we have this situation in California in which Marines, active duty Marines, have been called. Presumably they were called because the situation out there is so bad. But according to reports, the protests are muted, and the Marines, and actually a lot of the LAPD officers, are just sitting around texting or taking selfies. I mean, they're not doing anything. It's been confirmed that while Donald deployed an additional 700 Marines on top of the 4,000 National Guardsmen and women to LA, reports have confirmed what we already know. They came after a relatively muted night of protests. The Marines are limited because, again, it is kind of unconstitutional to have them there in the first place, at least if you are familiar with Posse Comitatus Act, which states very explicitly that military personnel cannot take action against American citizens except in the most extreme and rare circumstances.
Third Amendment.
That's right. And these protests do not qualify by any stretch of the imagination. So what are the Marines doing with our taxpayer dollars? They are guarding federal buildings and employees. They can't arrest anybody because they don't have the authority. And this is my favorite part. They were sent in without direct orders. Donald, just a quick reminder. You are ostensibly the commander-in-chief. That's kind of your job. Anyway, according to Gavin Newsom of California, only around 300 of the 4,000 National Guard troops have been activated. And the rest of them, as I said, they're sitting around in federal buildings, no assignments, no food, and no water, which is exactly how you would expect Donald Trump to treat our National Guardsmen. By the way, my dad was one, and our troops. This comes after the state of California government made clear to Donald that they had the situation completely under control and didn't need any additional reinforcements. So, I'm going to start with you. I want to talk about the circumstances in which all of this is happening, but also what it means going forward. And does it matter if Donald fails in his mission, which is obvious, to provoke some kind of confrontation to allow him to do worse? I'm curious what your take is.
The test case for authoritarian rule, and Donald is doing exactly what he promised before the election when he quoted Hitler and said that he would unleash the National Guard and military against the, quote, enemy from within. The person who's the real brains behind what's happening in LA is Stephen Miller, Budget Goebbels, Pee Wee German, who is one of the most evil and dangerous people in America, and a person who has been committed to this since high school. He's an out-and-out white nationalist who does not mind that if America gets destroyed, because he thinks America has been destroyed by the invasion of black and brown people. He wants to undo birthright citizenship. He wants to take us back to the 1930s manufacturing, so iPhones could cost $30,000. But he doesn't care, because for him, the number one goal is to make America white again. And I'm not saying this without any hyperbole. I think people really need to go back and do a refresher on Stephen Miller, his views, his ideologies, his beliefs. I mean, it is deeply dangerous. So right now, he is the person who's kind of unleashing the ICE, and Wall Street Journal reporting said that Stephen Miller directed them to go and just pick up people at Home Depot and 7-Eleven, and they have a quota. So now you have masked ICE agents, right, with weapons, literally just terrorizing LA. This is how it all began. And I think facts matter. It all began because they unleashed ICE. They had an SUV drove over a protester. They literally have been trying to kidnap kids from elementary school folks. They assaulted and arrested a union leader for no reason. And so naturally, people are like, yo, you're friggin' kidnapping without due process or any warrants all of our relatives. They've already kidnapped legal immigrants, sent them to die in a foreign gulag. They have kidnapped Ramiza Ozturk, right, for the sin of co-writing an op-ed. Like, what else do you need to see? And now Donald Trump, and I'm saying these words, and I just want people to sit with it because it's not normal, has sent 4,000 National Guard members away from active duty, from real threats, 700 Marines away from active duty and real threats, in addition to ICE agents, in addition to the LAPD, folks. If you don't follow California news, it's like a mini military. The LAPD, which has a very fraught relationship with black and brown communities, the LAPD is like, yo.
You don't say.
Yeah, yo, we got this. Hey, thank you. The LAPD thanked the community and community leaders for organizing peaceful protests on January 7th. Then on Sunday night, they said, hey, the LAPD chief said, hey, the National Guard's presence is making our life harder because we can't do our job because people are calling us for 9/11, right, to protect and serve, and we can't make it. And then yesterday, they're like, hey, the Marines now are making our job harder. So you have the National Guard, military, and LAPD all there without leadership, trying to figure out what to do. Chaos. Now you mentioned it, the photo of National Guard members, no accommodations. Who's taking care of them? Who's housing them? Who's cleaning them? Chaos. Now you have escalation, because what happens when you bring a gun to a nonviolent affair and you have tear gas and rubber bullets? Unnecessary escalation, right? Which is exactly what Stephen Miller wants. So the reason why I think this is so dangerous, Mary, in addition to everything I said, is this is Stephen Miller trying his best to recreate the modern day Reichstag fire in LA. Yep. that gives him and the administration excuse to literally crack down and break heads to, as Donald Trump said earlier today, right? He's open to what? Invoking the Insurrection Act. He said it, folks, which allows them, and we've talked about it on your show for years, that what he'll do is he'll manufacture a crisis, say, I'm the commander in chief. The power vested in me says that I have to quash the enemy from within. As such, martial law, suspend elections, and I'm your ruler. And if you think this is cray, look at LA right now, and then also look at the fact that he's going to have a military parade with tanks rolling through the streets on Saturday. And he just said today, and he got the day wrong, that anybody protest the military parade on Sunday. It's Saturday, Donald. You're getting old. Will be.
It's
met
also
with
his birthday. You think he'd remember that?
Forgot.
My God.
He said they will be met with very heavy force. A president literally threatening violence against peaceful protests. Folks, what more do you need to see? This is phase one of an authoritarian plan, which is why we have to resist it at every single level. We have to resist this, Mary.
Yeah, and to the point about this military parade on Saturday, just to put it into context, he wanted to do that during his first administration. And at the time, there were people in the executive branch who said no to him, just as they said no to the more extreme tactics he wanted to employ during the Black Lives Matters protest. There aren't such people left anymore. And now one of the reasons, besides the fact that it's just unseemly and un-American to have a military parade, and I know it's Flag Day, but it's also his birthday. Why is he doing it? Not because he doesn't know it's Flag Day, quite frankly. Apparently he doesn't even know it's his birthday, but he's doing it because it's his birthday. It's to honor him. He's a deeply damaged, depraved person. But so it's unconstitutional and unseemly to have military parades for American leaders, but especially one who dodged the draft 5 times. But also having the heavy equipment, and I don't know if you guys have seen the pictures of the thousands of tanks. How much is that costing us? Moved into DC. It will rip up the roads in downtown DC and in Virginia, and Donald doesn't care. It will literally rip up the roads. So, Adam, I also want to talk about, as Waj alluded to, the chilling effect these kinds of behaviors can have. So we know that this is a manufactured crisis that Donald has been itching for a very long time. There's a newly leaked letter showing that Donald's Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, tried to authorize U.S. troops to detain protesters in Los Angeles on Sunday, which is as close as you can get to being martial law. The letter also requested drones, weapons, military support to clamp down on demonstrations. And I think it's important just to remind ourselves what the protests are about. They are to protest Donald's vile and cruel immigration policies. Now, the Pentagon denied these requests, but again, thousands of federal troops are still in the city. California suing. And basically, California leaders are raising alarms about the Trump regime's escalating assault on civil liberties and state sovereignty. But Adam, the other thing I'm also really concerned about, because many people aren't really paying attention to what's happening on the ground. They're paying attention to what they're seeing on Donald's social media posts. He's lying through his teeth, but also the rhetoric, the very incendiary rhetoric that's being used by him, by Noem, by Stephen Miller. And if that's what people are paying attention to, I think that does not end in a good place.
Right. And Homan, obviously, I mean, we learned that you don't have Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon on your show and avoid potentially getting arrested. Right. I think Waj summed this up very well in terms of the way that this is manufactured. What we've seen, and we've seen this for years and years, doesn't really matter who's president, but anytime there are peaceful protests or people are stepping up and doing things, there are a small group of people that will come and do things like light a dumpster on fire, right? There was the footage of CNN saying, we're now looking at what appears to be a dumpster on fire. and they take away from, you know, all of the good people out there protesting that are waving and actually just, you know, throwing bubbles in the air and, you know, holding one sign. I saw, you know, you guys probably have seen the photo of the little girl holding the sign that's like, how can someone be illegal, you know, living in a land that was stolen? And it's really strong stuff. But I think that, you know, they've said this all along, so it's hard to be surprised, right? I mean, we talked about Project 2025. We knew this was happening. LA was the perfect sort of ground zero place for them to do this. And as you said, the only thing that people are hearing is either the sort of sound bites that come out on 30 seconds on TV, what he's posting online. Meanwhile, it's going to get worse and worse. You showed the photo of the military members. There's a lot of other issues there when you're talking about the Guard in terms of getting paid, right? When their paychecks come, whether they're going to be able to have bills and food and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's serious ramifications when you activate these folks, and especially when there's a disagreement between the state and federal here. So, and this idea that people can't peacefully protest in Washington, D.C. during what is his, you know, birthday parade. I mean, again, is there going to be a military parade when the Marine Corps celebrates its birthday this fall? I don't think so. I mean, maybe he'll do another one, but this is obviously all about him. And you can tell that something different is happening around the country right now. I was driving from Washington, D.C. yesterday to Alexandria, and on every bridge, there was 50, 100 people standing there waving signs and flags and you know, holding up signs that say "No Kings." This is days. Yesterday was days before this is all happening, and I haven't seen anything like this in terms of the outskirts of Washington, D.C. in my life.
Yeah, it is. I'm so tired of this word, but it's accurate in this case. It's all unprecedented. So I think all we can do is fight fire with fire, metaphorically speaking, of course. Now, Brian, I want to get to what's happening with the attacks on journalists, but just to remind people how things have devolved since 2020. At that time, when Donald was asked about Black Lives Matter protests in Oregon, and there was some violence there, he actually acknowledged his federal limitations in calling in the National Guard. So check out this clip.
Promised 4 years ago at the Republican convention, I'm going to restore law and order.
And I have, except in Democrat-run cities. Look, we have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that, even in a Portland case. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
Oops.
Well, he lied.
Well, or unless it's a blue state governor named Gavin Newsom. As Adam, as a quick aside, but as Adam pointed out, good job tacking to the right, Gavin Newsom. It's doing you lots of good. Anyway, as I said, Brian, I wanted to talk to you about the attacks on journalists at these, generally speaking, peaceful protests. One of the most jarring moments in the last few days has been, or some of the most jarring moments have been, the attacks on the press. Reporters and their crews have been gassed. They've been hit with rubber bullets. They've sustained injuries that led to at least one reporter in the hospital. So let's take a look at this clip, and then Brian, you can comment on the other side.
LAPD has opened fire with rubber rounds. We got hit, you can see there. This is our security guard. You can see that white powder there. That's where he got hit.
After hours of standing off, this situation has now rapidly deteriorated. The LAPD moving in on horseback, firing rubber bullets at protesters, moving them on through the heart of LA. Whoa! Whoa! You just shut the fuck up! You okay? I'm good.
Are you okay? You guys aren't under arrest because you're with press, okay?
Okay.
But we have to take you out of the circle. We're going to direct you in the direction that you need to go.
Okay.
Do not come back, okay? What I need from you is to put your hands behind your back. They're going to walk you. Okay, you can hold on to your paper.
First of all, that seemed deliberate and intentional. That I don't
It
know.
was deliberate and intentional.
Yes, exactly.
He
And
turned
Brian,
and fired at her.
It's like
have
watching
we-
someone at a state fair.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Have we seen this on U.S. soil before? I mean, it's like it's worse than a war zone.
Well,
Deliberate, intentional attacks on press members.
Well, during Donald Trump's era, of course, and of course during there have been congressional people who have gone after the press, local. I've seen.
No, I mean physical
police.
attacks. I don't mean other
I'm
kinds.
talking physical. There have been physical attacks on the press. This is a bit unprecedented to turn and aim and fire a.
Well, that's what I meant. I didn't mean like the shoving and
this is unprecedented. Look,
thank you.
I gotta let me unpack a few things. First of all, I've been on the ground here in LA for now the 4th day covering the riots. I have been the victim of some gas. It does smell like fascism, but to quote someone who was in the news, I haven't been shot with a rubber bullet yet, but I've also gotten back to a safe space. Look, you talk to the police and you talk to the security people there on site, and they'll tell you during the day it's a very peaceful protest. I'll tell you how peaceful it is, folks. And look, don't believe I'm there. I'm telling you what's going on. And there are people selling raspas and hot dogs and sodas and placards right there on the street as they protest. The protests during the day are very calm. In fact, there were people scrubbing, the poor workers. You can almost see it as a make-work project. The poor state workers, all of them Hispanic, are out there cleaning the hanging up boards and ply boards to cover the broken windows and cleaning up the graffiti off the buildings by day, and people are just walking by. Now, at night, it gets a little bit different. Now, both Gavin Newsom and the president have said there's paid actors or instigators at night. Well, who do you think paid them? It's not the protesters. They've been very peaceful. I have not had one. I've covered dozens of riots. I was at Ferguson. I was in Baltimore. I've been in LA in 92, the riots. That was when they last called out the Marines. That was what, $73 billion, I think. 73 arrests, dead people, thousands injured. That's when you call out the Marines, not for this. I covered the 2012 NCAA celebration in Lexington, Kentucky, where they were celebrating winning the NCAA tournament, and that was more violent with more arrests than have occurred at this protest. You have people walking around by day saying peaceful protest, by night saying peaceful protest. Now, the optics are bad for some of them because it doesn't look good to hold up a Mexican flag over a burning empty vehicle. That Donald Trump is going to take advantage of. And this is part of the problem. He's out there claiming that this city has been taken over, and it's a flat out lie. There are maybe 10 city blocks that have been affected. There are people walking down the street. There are restaurants that are open while these protesters are moving by. And by the way, Donald Trump does know about the Posse Comitatus Act. Mary, I was there in his first administration, asked the question, and they called it the Hakuna Matata thing. So they damn well know what it is. They don't care. As far as that picture about the young woman, I took that picture, or at least I was one of the ones taking a picture about it. And no, it's unprecedented. I haven't been shot by a rubber bullet yet. And Donald Trump's chuckling about it. And most of these National Guardsmen from California have been approached by their neighbors and friends in the protest saying, you should be over here with us. And I've seen several of them nodding and agreeing. This is not going to go the way Donald Trump wants. More importantly, to your point, Waj, this is what Stephen Miller wants. He's the Nazi in the woodpile who wants this to erupt into flames so that they can then move in, declare martial law, close off the elections, and Donald Trump declares his kinghood. That's the goal. And I'm telling you from being on the ground myself, this is not a dangerous protest. Yes, I see the pictures. I was at January 6th. I've been here. I was in Ferguson. I was in Baltimore. I was in LA in 92. This is the least violent of any of the protests that I've covered in my life, with the exception of a PTA protest at a local elementary school in 27.
I'm surprised that wasn't more violent, quite frankly.
And that one got a little more, quite frankly, there were 2 mothers who were arrested, and it may have been violent. So come on, give me a break. This is all BS. And his tweets are annoying, aggravating, and filled with lies and innuendo. If you don't see it coming, I'm telling you, I've got nothing. I've got no reason to lie to you. I've got no reason to lead you astray. This is not what Donald Trump claims it is. Quit falling for it.
Yes. You think we would have learned that by now? It's been 10 years, guys. Catch up. It's actually been 70 years. You know,
and to bring you up to date, he just tweeted out, or Donald Trump just released a press release saying it's going to cost $134 million to send the Marines and the National Guard.
You just anticipated me. We knew that already. So I was going to mention that.
I'm sorry.
Before shifting gears to Saturday. But yes, Pete Hegseth, sadly, the Secretary of Defense, had to appear in front of the House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, and he was grilled by both parties over the cost, legality, and logistics of this deployment of service members to LA. And yes, that is the number, Brian. Yes, $134 million just to deploy the National Guard and the United States Marines to a state that doesn't want them there for this reason. And if I hear Mike Johnson ever say waste, fraud, and abuse again, I'm not entirely sure my head will stay attached to my body. Okay, so Waj, this is all going swimmingly for Donald, and I think it's a precursor in some ways to what may happen on Saturday, which is June 14th. It's his military parade that he's throwing for himself because he's such a depraved little man. So he's basically in advance of this, because I guess protests are obviously being organized around the country. Hopefully there will be an enormous presence in DC. Protesters are calling it, or organizers are calling it, No King's Day. And Donald has actually started threatening the American people who have the audacity to exercise their First Amendment rights on Saturday to disrupt his little celebration for himself. So let's look at this clip.
Celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest. But, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
Says the man who hates our country more than anybody has ever hated our country.
So much for the First Amendment.
Yep. I love the voice that you all do for him. That makes me just very happy. I missed it. In addition to Missing Mary, who left us for to travel the world, as we sat there saying, Mary, why won't you invite us on Nerd Avengers? She goes, go away, peasant. I'm traveling.
That's exactly what I said.
That's how she sounds like too, while smoking a cigarette.
With a cigarette holder.
With the holders from the 1920s, like a flapper.
My tiara and my feather boa.
Yeah, and then she blows the smoke in our face. But we still love her. No King's Rally is what we need. We need mass civil disobedience at every single stage, because this is look, with all the stuff that's frightening, it's clear. The one good news, folks, is the following: is they just did the polls, came out today. Majority of Americans are against the crackdown against these protests, right? Donald Trump is essentially underwater on every issue, and on immigration, that's his one strong suit, which is maybe some polls is 52, 53%, Mary. But once you dig deeper and they ask people, do you support the crackdown on legal immigrants? It dives, right? So once people realize he's going after grandma and grandpa and kids and Abrego Garcia, he's down double digits. And so everything's going to be a distraction from the failure until there's going to be nothing but failure. And it's only 4.5 months in the presidency, which of course speaks terribly about where this country is headed.
Yeah.
But I want to remind people
1,320 days left.
But I want to remind people that America is a big country, folks. We've traveled it. It's huge. It's 340 million people. This man barely won the election. A lot of people hate him. We are already seeing him try to manipulate and abuse the government, to crack down in LA. And you've already seen it cost 134 million. People are like, why the hell are you here? Confusion. People have no direction. There's nowhere to stay, right? So this is where every single person doing something, whether it's the 50-51 rallies, the Tesla takedowns, the No Kings rally, people speaking out, the judges, Democrats, it's all like, imagine a machine and everyone adds a crack here. Eventually what happens, it collapses, right? And so anyone who's expecting a magic snap of the fingers and things are going to be okay, not how it's going to work, folks. We've been saying on Mary's show, it's going to be a long walk, to quote that Bruce Springsteen song, but this is where the long walk begins. Like, everyone has a small role to play, right? Watch Andor season 1 and season 2, but Donald openly saying that he's going to unleash a very heavy force. We've normalized what's not normal. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine if Joe Biden said, I will use heavy force against MAGA protesters who come against my $45 million unnecessary military parade that you see in North Korea? We all know what would happen. The fact that there are not more alarms about this, there should be alarms, because as Brian said, we have a First Amendment right, civil disobedience, protest, freedom of assembly. So the fact that he's already signaling that he's going to crack down, and I also think, and this is my fear, Mary, being students of history, once there were videos that went around the world of racists and police officers and the military cracking black skulls during civil disobedience, John Lewis, Martin Luther King, and others, that turned the tide just enough. And everyone now has a cell phone. And my fear is that once you escalate and unleash the military and National Guard, weaponize people against overwhelmingly peaceful folks, what happens? Escalation. All it takes is a video footage of one of Trump's goons killing or maiming, and I'm sorry I have to frame it this way, an unarmed white person, an unarmed white woman. And I know you can't win over MAGA. They won't care. They'll celebrate it. They call her a pedophile. But I'm telling you, Mary, a bunch of white folks getting their skulls cracked, who are peacefully protesting, that's going to wake some folks up. And this is a country with over 400 million guns.
And again, though, it depends on where people get their information. But yes, if images go viral, they go viral. And obviously, we hope it doesn't come to that. But we're also living in a time of extremes. And people are overwhelmed. People are inundated. People are inured to a lot of this stuff. People aren't paying attention, et cetera, et cetera. So sadly, it may take something like that. And hopefully, hopefully there is nothing like that happens. But if something like that does happen, hopefully it will work against Donald, not for him. And he wants it. He wants the violence, and he wants it to benefit him. And that is the president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. So
Wash says, depending on where people get their news, now would be a good time for people to hit the share button so more people get their news from Mary.
See, because I suck at this. Thank you, Adam, for doing Wash's job. Who's doing my job?
No, my job, our job would be, if you don't mind, please, if it's okay, I apologize for asking you. I apologize for apologizing. I'm sorry.
I'm horrible at it myself.
Yeah, you guys, maybe we should just move on, because this is not going well. We should have left it with Adam. But no, I mean, you guys are usually really good. You're all better at it than I am, that's for sure. Oh, by the way, since last we met, we've crossed 400,000 subscribers.
Yay!
So, cool.
Wait,
Thanks,
Mary,
guys.
I mean, just to show, I mean, you started this like a year ago and started with 0, right?
0 would be the number, yeah.
And I mean, and around this time, it was like I remember we were like, we got to get Mary to 50,000. To get to 400,000 in a year is remarkable. Well done.
Cool. We're very happy. And again, thanks to the nerds, and thanks to everybody who's subscribed, everybody who's watching. And I'll do more of that later. But Adam, I want to get to this, because obviously everything we're talking about is incredibly important. But, and this seems to be happening increasingly, it's also a distraction. So sometimes the distractions are just distractions and they're not that important, and they change the focus. They shift the focus from the actually important things that are happening. This is both deeply important because it's sort of about the future of this country, like who we are as a country, but it's a distraction from a lot of things that are kind of going on under the radar. For example, Robert Kennedy, who sadly is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, fired all 17 members of the Centers for Disease Control's Vaccine Advisory Committee. So I want to take a look at this clip, and then Adam, have you comment on the other side.
A massive change by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. removing all members of the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee, which makes recommendations on the safety and efficacy of vaccines. Members getting a notice saying this email serves as formal notice of your immediate termination. Kennedy releasing a statement saying, "Today we are prioritizing the restoration of public trust above any specific pro or anti-vaccine agenda." Kennedy argues a clean sweep is needed to restore public trust, claiming the committee had conflicts of interest, adding the Biden administration appointed all 17 current members, with 13 of them last year. But critics have called this change dangerous and partisan.
This is the same individual who said, "Don't take my advice, I'm not a medical doctor."
Yeah, not a medical doctor, not a doctor of any kind. He has no degree in any kind of science, let alone biology, virology, or immunology. So, Adam, we are, in this instance, I mean, they're all madmen. But Kennedy, I think in some ways has as much or more power than anybody in the Trump regime to inflict untold damage on the American people, including our children. And there's no pushback at all.
No, and for those that remember, it's not a surprise that he lied here, but RFK Jr. promised Senator Cassidy that he would not fire these individuals. So I think we all knew he would, right? It's almost like there's no surprise here, but why didn't Senator Cassidy? And, what is he saying about this right now? It is terrifying. RFK Jr. has killed before. He will kill again. And it's a massive problem. I just kind of to piggyback on the previous topic, I think that the LA piece here feels to me like the Trump administration and Donald Trump and Pee Wee German, which I love, have lit a match that I think can counter to conventional wisdom can come back in their face. When I started, 15 years with DC Police as a reserve, and I started, I'm familiar with ICE. I've seen out there before. When they travel, it's like maybe 2 or 3 vehicles, right? And they're very siloed. It's not the Washington, D.C. Police Department where if you have a real emergency and you're an officer, you have 700 people from throughout the city coming to have your back.
Right.
And that's why it's so easy for a small group of people to stand up, chant, walk towards them, and they get in their vehicles and they leave because they don't have a police department that's coming to have their back. And they're going to continue to do this throughout the country, but the resources aren't there. So the only way that we're ever going to get in a better place on things like RFK Jr. is if people do what Waj said, which is stand up and push back on this stuff, because otherwise look what's happening, with the CDC. I mean, this is the only way this is going to be fixed is by people showing up and being out there and watching what is happening to their fellow Americans in LA. Because I agree to the other point that was made by our good friend here, that there are members of the National Guard who don't want to stand up to their neighbors. They want to stand by their side. And I think the more people come out, this is just not going to work in their favor.
Yeah. And just a quick point on that. For those who don't know, National Guardsmen and women are from the state in which they serve, right? I mean, technically speaking, their commander-in-chief is the governor of their state. And we all know that the vast majority of the time when National Guard troops are called, it's to help in the wake of natural disasters, to help their neighbors. And I think, going over Newsom's head was seriously problematic. It's probably illegal. It's almost certainly unconstitutional. There's a lawsuit that's going to take forever. But to Adam's point, I think it is the human connection that's going to make a difference here, because people aren't stupid. The National Guardsmen, the Marines, they're going to see what's going on, and they are not going to understand why they were ordered to go to LA to quell the violence, they're going to see there isn't. They obviously have seen that. And again, some of them will not be, many of them, I imagine, will not be comfortable going up against their neighbors who are doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, and the numbers just aren't.
A lot of them are from LA. That's the thing.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they're actual neighbors. It's not like state neighbors. It's like, yo, Joe, we're playing in the softball league next week. Guess not.
Exactly. Yeah.
The numbers just aren't there. I think the one thing though that I'm even more concerned about than anything else is for that clip that you played of the Australian reporter. To me, like, police departments have been getting better and better, and we've been seeing less and less of that over the years. This isn't the 1990s. There's always bad apples. But for someone to turn and do that, just from a standpoint of a former law enforcement officer, that is going to embolden so many other bad apples throughout the country to do that. That paired with the fact that Donald Trump wants to pardon. Right. And that paired with the fact that, Donald Trump is out there wanting to pardon all these officers that shouldn't be pardoned. So I think that part is scary. And that is what is going to lead to something happening that may turn the tide, because they're going to end up doing this to the wrong person.
I think it already has.
Right. I certainly hope so. But there are two problems here. One is, to your point, Adam, it is the worst among us when given this kind of power to act on their malicious motives, right? They feel empowered by somebody like Donald Trump, and that doesn't end well. Right. The other problem is that, we often talk about Donald as being above the law, and he is, thanks to the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority in the Supreme Court. But guess what? Everybody else doing his bidding who could potentially get a pardon from him is also above the law. And again, to Adam's point, that complicates this situation incredibly. So, Brian, I want to talk about another journalism thing, and then I have a question for all three of you in the wake of what's happening in Los Angeles. But this is about Terry Moran. So I wanted you to take a look at this clip, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
ABC News is suspending its senior national correspondent, Terry Moran. A company spokesperson confirmed in a statement that Moran has been suspended pending further evaluation. It comes after the journalist described top Trump aide Stephen Miller as a, quote, world-class hater in a since-deleted post on his personal social media account.
This is unacceptable and unhinged rhetoric coming from someone who works at a major television network. We have reached out to ABC. They have said they will be taking action, so we will see what they do. But I think this speaks to the distrust that the American public have in the legacy media.
Oh yeah.
Somebody shut that POS up. Let me explain something.
I'm gonna go backstage for like 3 minutes because I got a protester in his crib who is trying to get out and stuff. So
all right,
pull me off.
Baby insurrection, be free, baby, be free.
Trying to jump out. So I'll see you guys.
I got you.
All right. Terry Moran is one of the few reporters left who is actually asking tough questions.
Exactly.
And this is the extension of what started during the first administration. You don't see me in that briefing room. They don't want me there. You don't see Jim Acosta fired. You don't see him in that briefing room. You don't see the two people that are left that work for Reuters, Steve Holland and Jeff Mason, who will ask tough questions. They're not there. This is a systematic attempt to squelch free speech guaranteed in the First Amendment. Let's see. Let's just read this little sucker. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble. He's hitting 1,000 on all of them, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. No, that's activist judges. This man has taken the Constitution and shredded it, and ABC and every other company that owns media is guilty they are complicit in this because they have other contracts and other business with the government, so they bow to this moron. This is anti-American. This should not stand, and everybody should stand. Look, man, I testified before the FCC last week, and I said this, and as God is my witness, we want to stand up. There are reporters who want to stand up and reporters who have. The problem is the FCC has been in the pocket of the large corporations for years. And as I told them then, and I'm saying it now, the FCC, do your damn job, and we'll do ours. But the FCC won't. Now we have a listening tour with Commissioner Gomez, who's one of only 2 Democrats on the FCC board, but they can't get anything done. But they also never did anything when they had control. So this is complicity by government and large businesses to squelch free speech, and it's working. That's why more than ever, hit the share button. I couldn't resist because, damn it, if you don't, you've got to stand up for your right to dissent. Nothing I've seen. I had, and Mary, this is what frightened me this week. I have a friend of mine I've known for 25, 30 years who I was in the Gulf War with. He is a Donald Trump supporter, but still, nonetheless, I have gotten along with him for many years. He called me up and said, I'm scared, and he used the word shitless, because Donald Trump has shredded the Constitution. I felt like saying, welcome to the party, pal. But the fact that he is aware of what's going on, more people are becoming aware of it because of the gross actions that you're talking about. I do believe that it has flipped on him already. But I'm worried, and Mary, you know him better than I, but my concern is that none of these people like Donald Trump ever go gentle into that good night. They will burn it all down to rule over the ashes, and that's what I think he would do. Yes.
I muted myself. My apologies. Okay, so to that point, I mean, that is
I thought maybe you were having a stroke. I was a little worried.
Well, I might be. I should be.
I thought it was a pregnant pause, and you were about to say something brilliant.
I'm not, but anyway, I'm not. But I wish. So we are, and Watch flagged something that I want to point to before I ask my question, because it's kind of related. Is the tide turning? Are people waking up? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that is the case. Excellent. He's still in power. He's still surrounded by people like Stephen Miller and Caroline Leavitt, whatever her name is, and all of the people like Hegseth and Kennedy who were destroying our agencies and destroying institutional memory, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like, oh, things are going to get worse for him, he's going to resign, or things are going to get worse for him, and what? The American people are going to recall the 2024 election? No, he's going to get increasingly desperate and act out in a way that's increasingly dangerous. So, I mean, on the one hand, good, this is what needs to be happening. However, what do we do to at least mitigate, if not entirely avoid, the worst case scenario? So one of the things that makes that harder is what Watch said to me. 75 Democrats joined Republicans to express gratitude to ICE agents and call for greater local and state collaboration with ICE. That, in my view, is making common cause with fascists. And if Democrats continue to do this, they are going to make all of this so much harder for us that it may be impossible. So my question to you guys is this. This feels like an inflection point, potentially a turning point. We've been saying this for a long time. The only way, or the best way out of this, is to shut it all down. And I mean all of it. How close? I'm going to start with Brian and then Watch. How close are we to that point? Or maybe do you still think that's the way to go? Or do you think that's the way to go? And if so, how close are we to needing that to happen?
Well, what do you define as shutting it all down? I
stop working, stop shopping.
Oh, a national strike.
Like shut down the country.
I think a national strike is close. There are people that were scared to death that it's civil war, and Donald Trump says he doesn't want civil war. No, he just wants compliance. And he'd take compliance. I mean, if there was no war and people just bowed to him, he'd take that.
But that's not happening.
Of course not. But I think a national strike is in the offing, and July 4th, I've heard, is a good time to maybe do those types of things, but we'll wait and see. The thing that bothers me about the 75 Democrats, there's some nuance involved in this. The way ICE used to operate, they would work on, nobody wants violent criminals in society, right? So there was, but they had
except
ICE,
Donald Trump, of course.
well, yeah, and especially, I love how Donald Trump is saying we got to get criminals out of the country. Then he lists criminals that have done things that are less criminal than what he's done. I mean,
okay, I just want to flag this for you guys. We only have a couple of minutes. So,
okay, well, to close it off this way, then, at the end of the day, ICE used to do things differently. They're now backing the new way of doing it. I think that's only going to add to the trouble. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to see a national strike sooner rather than later. I don't know even if that will be effective. Donald Trump is a violent man, and Stephen Miller is a Nazi.
Yes, he is. He is indeed.
He's the dark Sith Lord.
I think, Donald Trump has more support than Hitler ever had, and he has a right-wing media, and he has the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court, and about a third of our fellow Americans, like I've said before, are lost for our lifetime. I sadly believe America is a very masochistic country. It learns the hard way. There's going to be much more years, I think, of suffering. That doesn't mean that Donald and Republicans won't weaken, but I think they will weaken the country as we resist. He doesn't have the majority. We've already seen the the Tesla takedown work. We've seen the pressure being put on law firms who bent the knee. That's working. We've seen the buy-ins to Costco, the buyouts from Target. There's going to be a recession most likely in this year. Musk has warned about it. Walmart execs have said the shelves might be empty. His trade war is a disaster. And sadly, you can bullshit Americans all you want, but at the end of the day, we're a capitalist society. The color that trumps all other colors, Mary, sadly in this country, is the color green. And once you start taking away money from folks, they start losing jobs. They don't have healthcare. They don't have Social Security. Plus, there's hurricane season. Once that pain all comes together, right? And I remember, folks, I'm old enough to remember that this country was dumb enough to vote for George W. Bush in 2000 and 2004. And I knew they were going to vote for Bush in 2004. I wasn't surprised. But it took about 6 years of pain because it was chaos upon chaos upon chaos. And then what happened, Mary? Remember that? 2007-8 economic crisis, Katrina, the lies, democracy didn't bloom. We got like body bags coming back. And then people are said, F this, we'll elect a black Muslim. And so.
But also, by the way, the thing I think that turned the tide against him was his tour to privatize Social Security.
And they've never stopped.
Damning commentary on this country.
They've never stopped, and they always bring it back. Like they can't help it because they're so extreme. What people don't realize is they did a data point a couple of months ago at Financial Times, where they compared the modern right-wing movement in America, MAGA, to other right-wing movements. Folks, the modern right-wing movement in America is further to the right than any other right-wing government in the world. It's neck and neck with Russia. It has surpassed China because even in Hungary, they know, Orban knows, give the people some cake. In America, they're like, F you, we can't help ourselves. We know this is political disaster. Got to take your Medicaid, got to take your Medicare, got to take your Social Security. So the pain is going to come, but I do think we need all hands on deck. And the last thing I'll say is, why are you supporting ICE, Democrats? Why? It's because you're cowards. ICE is kidnapping people off the street. I'm all for abolishing ICE. I'm old enough to remember ICE was created after the war on terror.
They'd rather abolish FEMA than ICE.
They abolished Department of Education. That's been longer than ICE. They're gutting the IRS. They're gutting the Veteran Affairs. They gutted USAID. It's killed 300,000 kids. Why the F do we need ICE? It wasn't there in the 20th century. It was there after the war on terror. It's always been terrorizing Black and brown communities. We don't need it, especially as they're kidnapping folks. Sorry for my TED Talk.
No, that's a new T-shirt. Abolish ICE. I believe that for a very long time. It is a corrupt agency that it's basically Donald's secret police now, is what it is.
That's what it's
anyway.
Into, absolutely.
Yeah. And Tom Homan, who, by the way, has nothing to do with ICE. People seem to forget he's walking. He's making all these media hits like he's a Sandinista or that's the wrong one. I mean the other ones. The ones on the right. Like he's wearing army fatigues, basically.
Yes.
And he's not even part of ICE. He's part of the executive branch. He's like a special advisor or something. And he's walking around like he's some military tough guy. And those are the people like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and Kristi Noem. Those are the people with the power, and ICE is at their beck and call. So we need to get serious about this stuff. All right. I've got some people to thank, a couple of questions to answer, comments. Neely, a new member. I love that. For those of you who don't know, we now have different tiers of paid YouTube memberships at Mary Trump Media. At every level, you get different extras. This has nothing to do with subscribing to the channel. That's free. Subscribe to the channel for free. You get access to the videos, the lives, the nerds, etc. But the memberships, the paid memberships, like at one level, you can participate in surveys. You get access to extra behind the scenes videos. We have a banned book club, stuff like that. So check those out. So we love getting new members. Okay, Liz, thank you so much, Liz. Comment. Thanks for keeping us informed and for all you do, Mary. Love your channel. Well, thank you, Liz. It is a team effort, for sure. So we're happy that you're happy. David, another new member. Awesome. Thank you, David. Focus Lady. Wow. Awesome. Thank you for that. Very generous. Question. What will convince Donald to stop his reactionary revenge behavior? I know the answer to that. Say it again.
Nothing.
Well done, guys. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't know if it ever would have been possible. He's way too far gone now. That is for sure. And also, why would he stop?
And also, he's a broken man. Nothing's ever enough. He's so empty. He just needs more. I know
somebody who wrote a book about that.
I think her name is Mary Trump.
Oh, no way. And I think the book is called something like Too Much and Never Enough. I don't remember. But
hit the share button and buy the book.
It is, I mean, well, yeah. But I mean, I have to be honest with you. It is fascinating how true it is. And the more we see it, the more true it becomes. And it's kind of terrifying, actually. But good to know about, because then we can't be surprised. Swaney, I think. Thank you so very much for that. That's fantastic. Bonjour, Mary. I so apologize for my execrable French accent. Question. How long do you think it will be until you all live under martial law? Might this be what Donald will be announcing in his big, beautiful fascist parade? Thanks for your work. I think he's going to use this fascist parade as an excuse to declare martial law if things go south. I think martial law is right around the corner, quite frankly, but it may depend on how things play out in LA.
The protests in DC, I think, will.
I think Saturday is going to be pretty fascinating because people have had lots of time to prepare, and people are very upset about this military thing. And you know what? You know who's also upset about it? Members of the military. So it's going to be fascinating.
My answer is midterms, because they already are warning that they're going to lose the midterms, and they're already ringing the alarm bell. So I think within the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure they're going to wait that long. I think they might want to do it in preparation for the midterms, but I definitely agree it will be
in front of the midterms
for sure. Yeah. Lee, another new member, awesome and welcome. Audrey, a super sticker. That is fantastic and very generous. Much appreciated. Another super sticker. Cats are people too. Yes, they are. And that is very generous of you. Audrey, Dre, none of your business. Love that.
Nunya.
Nunya. Sorry, I'm not from Brooklyn, so I don't know how to pronounce it.
None of your business, you know.
Thank you, Audrey. Comment. Keep strong, everyone, and go out on June 14th to protest. Yeah, absolutely. Just so you guys know, I am. Oh, wait, one more question. Basuk, question. Is it possible that Donald is making distraction LA from his failed tariffs?
Yes. Yes.
Well, yes and no, though. I mean, again, it's the same thing.
Everything's a deflection with him.
But it's also very serious in its own right. But yes, because
everything with him is
a massive failure.
Distraction.
Yeah, you know, because he is,
and it's all serious.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of where we are now. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today here on YouTube, and everybody streaming on Twitter and my Substack, The Good in Us. Also, everybody listening to the podcast. To all of our new members, welcome and thank you. To all of our awesome super stickers and everybody giving us gifts. Seriously, you guys help keep the lights on. You help us grow, which is incredibly important. The easiest way to help us out is subscribe to the channel. We have videos dropping every day, and that's what I wanted to mention. We have a video dropping later today about how to stay safe if you go to these protests. Essential phone numbers you need to have, what to bring, what not to bring, etc. So again, that'll be dropping later today, so you'll want to check that out. So another easy way to support us is like and share those videos, comment on them. That helps us with the algorithm. Another way to help us in general is like subscribe to Waj's and Adam's and Brian's Substacks. Those are newsletters along with mine. Danielle has one as well. This is extremely important content, and their voices are essentially important. So follow them and support them wherever they are. Watch their podcasts, follow them, etc. So that is another way, because we're in this together. Like we're not competition. Like we work together. We support each other's work outside of this. And that is how independent media in America is going to grow and become as vital as it needs to be. So thank you to our excellent moderators.
But Mary, who's your favorite Nerd Avenger? Who's the best?
She is.
Wow. Yes, because
easy.
my last name is Trump. And that is exactly what I would say.
Sing to the tune of Welcome Back, Cotter. Welcome back. We're glad to have you back.
Mary should have said that. She goes, all of them are equals, but I'm the best one.
I'm the best, naturally.
I'm the best.
That's my new ringtone, Waj. I love you all equally. That's it. Anyway, I don't know what that voice was, and I apologize for having used it. I don't know what that was. Also, just thanks to my amazing team for doing such a phenomenal job during these seriously insane times. It is not easy, I promise you. Okay, so as you know, Nerds are now at Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. We will be back next Tuesday. Mary Trump Live every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Sundays, Ask Mary Anything Within Reason, also at 6 p.m. Eastern. And as I mentioned, we've got videos dropping, standalone videos dropping every single day. Check those out. And I think that does it for us. So thank you so much, Adam Parkamenko, whose protester was clearly putting up a fight. Brian Carroll, Waj, it was so great to see you guys. Can't wait to see you next week. And in the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.